power doesn't just corrupt. Sometimes it rots. In the winter of 897, inside the Lateran Basilica in Rome, the most sacred court in Christendom became a theatre of horror. A pope stood screaming at a corpse. Not a metaphor, not a parable. A 9-month-old body, dragged from its grave, dressed in full papal robes, slumped on the throne of St. Peter. The living successor, Pope Stephen VI, pointed at it with shaking hands and accused it of crimes. This was the Cadaver Synod, the trial of a dead man, and it remains one of the most grotesque spectacles in the history of the Church. To understand why, you need to know about Pope Formosus. In life, he was ambitious, clever, and dangerously political. He'd backed the wrong family in the vicious game of Italian power. The Spolitans, a dynasty that saw the papacy as their personal tool, had ruled Rome through intimidation for decades. But Formosus crowned their rival, Arnulf of Carinthia, emperor. By doing so, he humiliated young Lambert of Spoleto and his formidable mother, Agiltrude. When Arnulf fell ill and Formosus died soon after, the Spolitans took back control, and they wanted revenge, not just victory. Revenge so complete, it would erase Formosus from memory. Enter Stephen VI, a Roman, the son of a priest, and ironically, made bishop years earlier by Formosus himself. Sources suggest he never wanted the role, but ambition and resentment pushed him forward. Backed by Lambert and Agiltrude, he ascended the papal throne in 896. And then, in a fit of loyalty to his patrons, or perhaps madness, he ordered something no one had ever dared before. Dig him up. Bring me his body. Imagine the scene. Gravediggers pry open a coffin, lifting out the putrefied remains of a man who had been buried for nearly a year. His flesh shrunken, his jaw gaping, the stink of rot impossible to describe. They clothe him in the garments of office, the pallium draped across bone and ragged skin, the papal mitre set crooked on his skull, the fisherman's ring jammed onto brittle fingers. They drag this horror into the basilica and prop it on a throne before bishops, priests, and nobles. The stench fills the chamber. Witnesses gag, some faint, but no one leaves. Because this is politics in Rome, and politics demands obedience. Stephen begins the prosecution. He paces in front of the corpse, red-faced, sweat pouring down his brow, shouting accusations at the dead. You perjured yourself. You violated canon law. You usurped the seat of St. Peter. Every word, a performance. Behind the throne, crouched low, a deacon mutters replies on behalf of the cadaver, forced into the role of defense counsel for a rotting pope. A puppet show of justice, twisted beyond recognition. The charges are absurd. Formosus had once been Bishop of Porto and sworn never to leave that see. By becoming pope, Stephen declared, he had broken his oath. He had crowned Arnulf illegally. He was never truly pope at all. The verdict was predetermined. The defense attorney was a corpse. Formosus was guilty. But Stephen wasn't finished. Now came humiliation. One by one, the sacred vestments were stripped away. The pallium pulled off his shoulders. The mitre lifted from his skull. The ring wrenched from his finger, skin tearing with it. Finally, Stephen ordered his right hand mutilated. The 3 fingers used for blessing, severed. Witnesses said the sound was like snapping twigs. What remained of Formosus was redressed as a common layman, dragged from the throne, and dumped in a pauper's grave. Days later, Stephen escalated again. The corpse was exhumed a second time, dragged through the streets of Rome, jeered at by crowds, and then, in the ultimate act of damnation, thrown into the Tiber River. Since ancient times, traitors' bodies had been cast into the Tiber, denied burial, denied peace. Pope Stephen consigned his predecessor to the fate of Rome's criminals. But Rome had seen too much. They had endured murders, rival popes, street battles between aristocratic clans. This was different. This was desecration. This was blasphemy. Word spread that miracles began to follow. Fishermen claimed to see lights on the water. A monk swore the corpse washed ashore and healed his pain. Whether true or legend, the stories mattered. Formosus, far from erased, became a martyr. And Stephen's triumph unraveled. By summer, the people of Rome had turned. Riots broke out. Nobles who had backed him slipped away. Even the Spolitans distanced themselves. That August, an angry mob stormed the Lateran palace. They dragged Stephen from the throne, stripped him as he had stripped Formosus, and hurled him into prison. There, in the darkness of his cell, he was strangled. The man who had judged the dead was judged by the living. His reign had lasted barely a year. The church scrambled to contain the scandal. Pope Theodore II reburied Formosus with honor and annulled the trial. His successor, John IX, went further, holding councils to forbid any future trials of corpses. Yes, the Cadaver Synod forced the church to pass a law against prosecuting the dead. But the damage was done. Between 896 and 904, Rome saw 12 popes, most ending in violence. The papacy became a death sentence, and the image of a pope screaming at a corpse, severing its fingers, casting it into a river, remained burned into memory. Later, popes tried to erase the event. Records were destroyed, verdicts reversed, but history remembers, because the Cadaver Synod revealed something too stark to forget, that in 9th century Rome, nothing was sacred. Not life, not death, not even the papacy itself. The throne of St. Peter had become a weapon of vengeance, and in that weapon's fire, a dead man was dragged from his grave and condemned all over again. Stephen wanted to erase Formosus. Instead, he ensured they would both be remembered forever, one as a martyr, the other as a madman. The Cadaver Synod stands as the Church's darkest hour, the day justice became theatre, the day Rome put a corpse on trial. If this story shocked you, subscribe to Hidden in Time for more forgotten truths buried in history. Because sometimes the past isn't just strange, it's monstrous.